We are looking at why people over 50 have a difficult time getting employment. People over 50 are experienced, dependable, ready to do excellent work, and yet the hiring process often eludes them, works against their favor. I have compiled close to 20 reasons, and they are false assumptions based on false premises that leads to these biases and prejudices against people over 50 in the employment, in the industry. As far as employment is concerned, employers first assume you cost too much. Hiring managers assume your salary expectations will be far too high than they are willing to give. Unfortunately, these assumptions are made before they even meet you. Even in North America and Canada and United States, we don't put our ages on resumes, but employers, depending with the experience which you put there, with your work history, the dates which you graduate from high school, from college, the companies you have worked in, the history can always say, oh, he's over 50 or he's over 35. They can always come to that conclusion. These assumptions are not made without your consultation. A hiring manager assumes your salary expectations will be too high than they are willing to give. But in most cases, you'll be willing to take a lower salary because you are willing to get a job at an entry level. How do you deal with this prejudice? In most cases, I would assume in your cover letter, someone put the message out there that you are seeking for an entry level position. This is how you combat this. I am willing to accept an entry level position. The second one would be they worry you'll be too overqualified. Years of experience, your background is a lot stronger than any other candidate, and your experience, instead of being an asset, will be looked at as a future retention problem. Now, my suggestion in this, instead of putting an elaborate experience, in some cases I would suggest if you can omit what you can omit, delete what you can delete, in order not to scare them. I remember I had just come to this country and I was looking for entry positions in certain field, and I put my qualifications, education, background and experience, and then I went and sat down with this woman from Human Resources Development Canada, and she was counseling and says, now if you are looking for this entry position and you are putting this type of education which I'm seeing down here, you better scratch that education. Just put high school. That should be enough, because you spook the employers, you spook the hiring managers, you scare them, you make them quack in their boots. I had to delete that, and obviously in less than 2 weeks I was getting calls for the interviews. The next reason we are going to look at is some hiring managers still believe that in age stereotype, that they assume workers over 50 are less adaptable, less energetic, or harder to train. This is a false assumption, ladies and gentlemen. The background that you have worked on various things, it will make you more adaptable to whatever training you might be receiving in your future employment. Now, how do you deal with this stereotype? This one is harder to deal with, because as human beings we have our own biases and prejudices. This is a little bit harder to deal with, but you can always send some signals out there that I'm a quick learner. Some of those statements which you can include on your resume. And of course, if you're given a chance, demonstrate it in the next 3 months during your probation period. The next reason which we are looking at is they think you may not want to learn new tools, technology. This is tied to the reason which I have just said prior to this one. They think you may not want to learn new tools. This is again a false assumption, because over 50 people, given their experience, their background, what they've worked on, they can always transfer those traits, that experience, into learning new tools. As human beings, we are victims of false assumptions. But there is nothing much we can do about it. We can try our best to send some statements making that, hey, I am able to learn. I'm willing to learn. I can learn new skills. I'm a quick learner. Some of these statements, let them included on your. And the next reason we are looking at is your resume may show too much history. Too much details distract what employers are interested in most. This is what I said earlier on, that delete what you can delete without showing gaps in your employment history, because that can also be difficult to learn. That can also work against you. Resume may show too much history that might distract employers in what they're interested most. Delete what you can delete in order to deal with this prejudice. We continue to explore why people over 50 who are looking for employment, entry-level positions, have a difficult time getting it. What are the reasons? What are the biases? What are the prejudices? What are the false assumptions out there? And how we can deal with their myths out there. And we want to state facts and how you can combat the false assumptions which are out there in the industry. The next reason is they may prefer someone whom they can pay less. Young folks are less experienced, are more likely to accept smaller salaries and fewer benefits and lower titles. Given this scenario, you are over 50. There is nothing you can do. These assumptions, mostly they are made before they even meet up with you, before they give you a chance to set your foot in the door and argue your case. But now let your resume do the arguing. Let your resume explain a little bit. This is what I said, that as an older folks try to express it. I'm willing to take any entry-level position. Now, if you make that statement, they will then know that you are willing to accept less pay, less benefits, and a lower title. The next reason we are looking at it, they assume you struggle with young managers. Some companies are concerned about when an older hire able to respect authority of someone who is possibly half their age. You are 50 and your manager is a 25-year-old young man. There can be a concern that you be not willing to accept the authority of a 25-year-old. But folks, this is again a misguided assumption, because you don't have to be the oldest in order to lead a group. You just have to be the most capable, and authorities is given based on merit. Can be a young person. There is nothing much you can do about it, because these assumptions are being made without any consultation from you before you even set your foot in the door, before you even talk to anybody. The language on your resume has to address some of this concern a little bit. I take directions. Could be some of the language you can put there. They would know that, hey, he is willing to respect whoever the manager will be here. After all, you are there to do a job. And that person, that manager, is again there to do a job. At the end of the day, both of you, the employee and the manager, you have to ultimately produce for that company to meet whatever targets, whatever business objectives you are putting out for that company. Move to the next reason. They fear you'll be set in your ways. Again, this is a false assumption, ladies and gentlemen. Some employers believe that older workers, they have fixed habits, won't adjust easily to young and more modern companies. This is a little bit hard, especially if it is a startup of some 22-year-old. Unfortunately, there is nothing, again, you can do much about it, because this assumption that you are fixed in your habits, you won't be easily adjust to young and more modern company culture. These assumptions are being made without your consultation, without talking to you, without asking you, without hearing from you, without giving you a chance of opening your mouth and address these things. There is nothing much you can do except that you can again demonstrate it a little bit on your resume. And the next reason we are going to look is your interview style may feel too formal. If you come across as too formal or stiff, they are led to believe that you won't fit in the modern workplace. It is about finding the right balance between polished and approachable. That is when you are called for the interview. You may come across as too formal or stiff. They are led to believe you won't fit in a modern workplace culture. It is about finding the balance between being polished and approachable. Here is what you do when you are called for an interview. Now this is the chance to sell yourself. Now you have been given that foot in the door. If you are an older folk, we have been working for company XYZ for many years. You haven't had interviews in the recent past. Your best bet is to go and sit down with an employment counselor, like those human resources development personnel. Sit down with them and you polish your interviewing style, how you answer questions in the interview, because the world has moved on. Before you can realize, a lot of things have changed in the way interviews were done maybe when you were 25, which will be 25 years ago, than now. This one is an easy one to deal with. If you do that, you try to polish a few things, practice a few things, and then you'll be ready for the interview. Answer the interview and strike a balance between being polished and approachable. The next one we are looking at, they may question your long-term plans. If you're over 50, you might want to retire at 55, which is 5 years from now, and hence a concern over how long you are going to stay. So if you're over 50, this company is hiring for someone whom they might want to train for the job. For that person to become very productive, probably it might cost them 6 months or so training plus some working experience of 2 years before the person can become very productive to their standard, which they want. But you are an over 50. They know that over 50, in 10 years' time or in 5 years' time, you might want to retire. You might want to take an early retirement. There is nothing much you can do, but you can, once you're called for an interview, you can always demonstrate. Probably they would ask, what are your long-term plans? I hope to work for the next 15 to 20 years. People are working past retirement these days. There are people in their 70s. One of my professors was 75 years old. People are working past retirement. When they ask you in an interview, what are your long-term plans? Try to demonstrate that, hey, I am here to stay. Sell yourself in that area. I'm here to stay. I'm here to stick it out. So the next one we are looking at, they might think you won't fit in the company culture. If the entire company is young, they will assume you won't mesh well with the team. But there is nothing you can do much about it except that demonstrate, hey, I'm a team player. I take directions. I listen to whoever is in authority. Just demonstrate that. The next one is your skills may look outdated on paper. Even if your skills are current, resume may not communicate that. This one is easy to deal with. Go to an employment counselor. Sit down with, let them go through your resume and see in some areas where you need to act. You need to present yourself in a way that portrays you as a current person. You just need to twist things a little bit, portray your skills as current on your resume so that as to enhance your chances of being hired. The next reason we are looking at is they worry you will expect a higher title. Given your age, seniority, most employers immediately assume you won't be satisfied with the role unless it matches your previous experience. What we're saying here is like the employers are looking at your resume. They see you at this job title at the company XYZ. You are a graduate of University of Hard Knocks. Now they assume that you won't be satisfied with the role unless it matches your previous experience, what you have worked on in the past. You won't be satisfied with an entry-level position. That's the assumption here. With this one, how do you deal with it? Without saying it out, demonstrate to them that they should disregard the previous experience. Throw it out of the window. This is a new beginning. I'm here to accept an entry-level position, which is not a problem anymore. I'm willing to accept this is a new start. This is a new life. Give me that entry-level position. You have to demonstrate it in an interview. You have to demonstrate it on the language on your resume. This is how you deal with this. Now, let's continue with the reasons why employers don't hire people over 50. Or why are people over 50 having employment opportunities elude them? escape them being overlooked in the employment. The next reason we are looking at some recruiters screen too quickly. They are looking at graduation dates, decades of experience, and senior titles which you have had passed from your job, and they make instant assumptions. How do you deal with it? Sit down with an employment counselor, explain your case, pull out your resume. I'm looking for an entry-level position. This is my titles. This is what I've done in the past. This is the job which I'm willing to take. They will know what you can delete and what you can leave there, so as to enhance your chances of getting an entry-level position. Because if you come across as too experienced, obviously employment opportunities are going to elude you, are going to escape you. You are going to be overlooked in the employment, in the hiring process. The next reason, they assume you won't like the change. Many companies want employees who can handle shifting priorities, new systems, changing job titles, and job descriptions. Some employers unfairly assume that older workers prefer stability and change. Again, here we have false assumptions, ladies and gentlemen, that older workers prefer stability. Not all older workers. There are older workers who are willing to change, who are willing to move. I had a job one time with a certain company, but this happens after you've been hired. One of the questions which you fill out is, are you willing to relocate? Are you afraid to say yes or no? Then I prefer to know for personal reasons that time. But with that company, if you had said no, then it will enhance your chances of moving up with that company, growing with that company, getting senior positions in that company. I said no, I was not willing to relocate, assuming that you have that foot in the door. You have been called for an interview. You have sat down with them. You can always demonstrate one way or the other that you can handle shift work, you can handle new systems, and you can also handle changing jobs and job descriptions, and you are willing to move and grow up with the company. There are older workers who have gone to other companies and move up with the company as quickly as possible. Given their past experience, they've always moved up. Let's move to the next one. They may not understand your career breaks. You see, the older we get, the more career breaks we get. You can take a career break to, say, if you have took some time away for caregiving, for personal health, for family emergencies. For some employers might not give you time to explain. They may assume that those breaks show lack of motivation and desire to work. Because the older we are, the more breaks we are likely to have. I've worked with people who have gone off to care for their loved ones who are either critically ill or who are terminally sick. I've had folks who have taken breaks to care for their spouses or to care for their children. The older we get, the more responsibilities we get in life, the more families we get. As a result of this, some employers may make false assumptions that these breaks, they demonstrate lack of motivation or the desire to do work. You are someone who just want to go sit at home. You are someone who want to spending time on a couch rather than be in the workplace. These, again, false assumptions are made without your consultation. How do you deal with this as a potential candidate, as a potential new hire? On your resume, explain the breaks which are there slightly, like without details. Of course, if they give you the foot in the door, it's a chance to sell yourself, and then you can always explain the breaks if they ask about them. So let's move to the next one. They may be intimidated with your experience. Even if you are happy with the smaller role, your experience might be intimidating to your manager. They worry that you challenge their decisions, point out problems, make them feel less secure in their role. This is where I said, like, with the help of these employment counselors, these career counselors, you can delete what needs to be deleted, twist what needs to be twisted, of course, without misleading information on your resume, without lying on your resume, without falsifying your resume. Now, in closing, the hiring process rewards the best presentation not always the best person. Many qualified people over 50 lose out, not because they are not the best fit for the role, but because they don't present themselves in the modern way hiring managers expect. Applicants tracking software, keyword-based resume, and casual interviews, fast-moving hiring timeline can all create barriers. As a 50-year-old, these things which you can work on and give yourself a chance to be hired. Set that foot in the door. Once you set that foot in the door, sell yourself to that company and do the best. We thank you for watching this video, and please subscribe. Best regards to those who are over 50 who are looking for a job. You can be hired. You are hired.